The video game industry is wild right now. We're seeing the downfall of Call of Duty, activists being fired in mass, and projects being canceled. And while we've been talking a lot about Square Enix purging lots of developers and also Sony being focused on their home market, it looks like Japanese companies might actually be leading this major change. I have a few different things to show off, but before I get into the topic, if you enjoy the content I create, check out the links in the description, join the community in my live streams, and consider supporting through Patreon or YouTube memberships. Now, it never made sense to me that companies just gave up their home market or stopped focusing on it. While, yes, you can make more money by trying to appeal to a global market, ultimately, if you are not making the content that made you popular in the first place and you shift that tone, it is not going to make you money anymore. The reason why Japanese manga and anime and video games became so popular at such a rapid rate was because they were unique, they were different, they were special. But now the Square Enixes and the Sonys have all just made more Western slop. They're not really making what made Japan special in the first place. And I've been talking a lot about Square Enix's mass layoffs. I did another video on Sony preparing to take on Nintendo in Japan, but I think that it's very curious when you see all of this information together, just how much Japan is leading the change in this industry right now. I don't think that we are going to see the EAs change a lot. I don't think that we're going to see the Ubisofts change a lot or the Obsidians change a lot. I don't even think we're going to see the Microsofts change a lot right now. But if they see that actually making a certain type of content sells and they actually start understanding what it is that gamers want versus what they don't want, like Call of Duty Black Ops 7, we could see a much larger change. And over the past couple of years, I've been primarily consuming Eastern content. South Korean developers, Chinese developers, and yes, some Japanese developers are still making way better content than 90% of the companies in the West. And it does suck to say because I want to be able to just consume content from any type of developer from any region, but you can't trust any group of developers across the board. And Square Enix, Sony, all going through some pretty big changes right now, and gamers are excited to see that because it could mean that we actually see a major shift. And I'm not just talking about, oh, some people being laid off and some games being either canceled or repurposed. I mean, we need a total reset in this industry. And yeah, I do think that we could be headed towards that. I know that there's a big worry about AI completely replacing people in creative fields. I don't think that it's ever going to get that dire. And while there are a lot of people saying these mass layoffs aren't good because people are losing their jobs, we're talking about an industry that did overhire people. After the pandemic and work from home became popular, they hired and hired and hired, and then they greenlit and greenlit and greenlit. And maybe if they downsize from 20 projects in the works to 10 and they trim the fat and they actually start hiring veteran developers again, things could look better. So Square Enix announced mass layoffs as a restructuring plan pulls development from overseas. According to an internal presentation now published on Squeenix's website, a fundamental restructuring of the overseas publishing organization is being implemented with the aim of further strengthening global publishing capabilities and improving operational efficiency. According to IGN, this forms part of a push to consolidate its publishing business and focus on its own game development in Japan. It's thought that the company is currently notifying some staff working in the UK and the US of pending redundancies, and while the exact number of those in scope in the US is unknown, IGN reports 137 jobs are presently at risk in the UK. I've done several videos on the state of Square Enix. They have fired localizers. They fired the Western lead, or I suppose I should say the lead of their Western division. They have fired DEI heads. I mean, we're talking about a lot of people in a lot of ridiculous roles, or people that need to be in touch with the audience that aren't being let go. To strengthen development capabilities from a group-wide perspective and to optimize resource allocation for maximizing the value generated by IPs, a further review of the development pipeline was conducted. As a result, a decision was made to close overseas development studios and shift towards consolidating development functions in Japan. They said that they're reorganizing their operations in North America and Europe to strengthen their development structure and to drive a globally integrated marketing strategy. And they have faced problem after problem after problem over the past few years. Remakes, reboots, rehashes. We're talking about the Final Fantasy series being at risk right now. We're talking about a lot of losses, and they need way more wins. And I do think that, yes, not focusing so much on the Western world is going to help them. I do think that they need to hone back in on what made them popular and successful in the first place. I'm not saying completely drop, the US and the UK. I'm not saying that, because clearly that would not be a very smart move, but they do need to actually kind of go back to the drawing board. We also have heard that Sony is preparing to take on Nintendo in Japan. Previously, the PlayStation leadership wasn't worried about losing ground in Japan to Nintendo. However, the new Sony Interactive Entertainment CEO Hideki Nishino feels the opposite and now sees it as a priority, which I think is really good, but I don't know if they should address it this way, because Nintendo does have a grip on the Japanese market. Nintendo worldwide is extremely popular, and PlayStation 4 years did slight Japanese gamers. And I do think that their public image has been tarnished by their very poor action. So I think that it would take years to even kind of recapture that audience. I don't think that they're ever going to completely win against Nintendo, just like I don't feel Nintendo would ever completely win against PlayStation and Sony. But this is still a really good sign, because when they moved their headquarters to California, that's when they started prioritizing slop. And if we can get them to not do that anymore, my God, this industry might be in a better place. And of course, you can't trust any of these companies. Square Enix is getting rid of people, doesn't mean they're going to change. Sony says that they want to focus more on Japan, doesn't mean they're actually going to do that, doesn't mean they're actually going to change. You need to be cautiously optimistic, because these companies have proven time and time again that they cannot be trusted. But we do need to at least say this sounds like a good idea if they're changing their company direction. That could mean that they're actually listening to gamers. Again, I don't necessarily believe that, but it is still important to point out that is technically a possibility. And the more of us that are vocal, the more likely it is we see the changes that we feel most passionately about. And I want this industry to be better. There are people out there who say, oh my gosh, you just talk negatively about the industry. First of all, that's a complete and utter lie. But second of all, I criticize these companies in this industry because I want it to thrive. I want them to do better. I want them to listen. And if we don't ever say what is wrong, they will continue making what is wrong. And we are seeing a major shift right now. Arc Raiders and Battlefield 6 are completely obliterating Call of Duty. That is massive. Like, that is very big considering how Call of Duty has dominated. $70 billion went into the acquisition of Activision Blizzard. Microsoft must be panicking right now. When we're hearing all of this news together, it could mean something very good. So I will be following the situation really, really closely. This does look good. Stay cautiously optimistic, but we are seeing these companies that once were extremely focused on their home market of Japan and who had moved away from it, going back to their roots and saying, this is now what we want to focus on the most. But that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this important and informative, make sure to give it a like, share it, and subscribe to the channel. And if you didn't, give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I'll talk to you all again in the next video really soon.